Well, welcome to the Random Fandom Zone.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Herbert. And
as you can see, today we are together, same place, same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to dive into something that you really wanted to revisit, right?
Yeah, well, okay. We have a video of Babylon 5 when I was just the first time watching it. I was somewhere in the first season, and we kind of given a little bit of my reaction. So I wanted to revisit. I have now officially seen all 5 seasons. I've even seen one of the movies, and I've seen the animated feature that just came out somewhat recently. So yeah, I kind of wanted to revisit that. So we were visiting the last few episodes. Actually, it kind of won me over. It definitely has a story. It's one of the strongest sort of stories that you can really see. It has a viewpoint. All of the characters have really well thought out arcs. I mean, from season 1, that story is going, whether you realize it or not. And it is really satisfying as you watch it and see things come together and put things together and see where the plot is going. So a very well-written sci-fi series. It's tough. Like, it doesn't have a great budget. A lot of the, effects and art direction, it can be a struggle. Like, you earn Babylon 5, but if you've got the stomach for it, it's really excellent.
And we can look at some of the stats here. When I think back to 1998, that seems like a long time ago, and it seems like the other day to me in some aspects. Because I remember the 5th season got picked up by TNN. And so before, I can't remember what it was on, some type of syndication before or whatever it was. But the last season maybe wasn't going to happen until they actually got TNN to support that. They started rerunning all of Babylon 5. And that's where I kind of got caught up with all the seasons. And so I went back, and that first season, as you talked about,
it's not good. As you've said, you'll sit there and be like, what am I doing? What am I watching? Like, what is this?
What is going on?
And I also think, and we might talk about this a little more throughout, maybe unfairly, I think some of the issue is it gets compared with DS9 a lot. And DS9 did have a budget. And DS9 does have just crazy great Star Trek level effects and art direction. And so DS9 is definitely a smoother, more elegant watch. Honestly, I feel like as far as unity of story, Babylon 5, the DS9 doesn't have that same quality of voice in the story that Babylon 5 does.
Well, J. Michael Straczynski apparently pitched to Paramount a Star Trek, or was it Babylon 5? Anyways, he pitched them this story, and then right before they were about to go, DS9 happens. So similar things going on. It's more kind of a more religious background a little bit. There's at least a religious connotation. Obviously, it's a station going on. The station is important to the peace of like the Federation and DS9, and of the
and a
of the
war.
lines.
The theme
war
of it,
goes on.
They're going to go to war at some point.
So there was a lot of things that were connected together that were probably in his Bible that he wrote for this series.
Is he wrote 92 out of the episodes, out of what, 109 episodes, something like that?
Yeah, 110.
So, I mean, that really should, like, I don't think any Star Trek has that, where a single writer wrote that much. I think that's where a lot of the story and the arc come from.
Yeah, and I think
he did really it's almost written by a single author, like, really.
Yeah. His story, I think the joke was that if he died and before the 5 years was up, the story wouldn't have happened.
And he also has a little cameo as the person who throws the light on the Babylon 5 station when it's being decommissioned. He comes out and turns out the lights. Also, he wrote for The Twilight Zone. He also wrote for Murder, She Wrote. I want to say, I think it's in season 8. And Murder, She Wrote had been a great show, but it had been dropping down into like the top 30s. They hired him to come and write for it and picked it back up into the top 10s. He was responsible, if any of you are Murder, She Wrote fans, coincidentally, actually, my mom and I are going through Murder, She Wrote. And this particular part really just happened like last week as we're watching it. He was responsible for moving Jess to New York. I mean, she still has her home in Cabot Cove, but she gets an apartment in New York to teach a class there and kind of goes back and forth, and it kind of opens her up for more things in New York, and he was responsible for that part of the plot line and of Murder She Wrote lore.
How much murder can go on in one place?
In Cabot Cove, right?
So
Stay out of Cabot Cove, people. If you're like a visitor in Cabot Cove, just be careful.
it's like you never did watch the Highlander TV series, I don't think, but there are immortals, and my dad's watching it and saying, "How many immortals are there? You know, how many of these people are out there?" You know, so you think at some point how much murder can go on in one place and whatnot. So I guess let's start with what's the first.
Oh, also, this is another fun fact. He tried to be a showrunner for Doctor Who. Sadly, he put out a request and they said, oh, well, we already have our slate of candidates and we're not looking for any more. But he tried. They went back with, what's his name?
The one that rebooted.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I should know his name because I'm a big Whovian too. It's not Moffat, it's the other one.
Yeah.
Russell T. Davis.
Yeah,
Davis.
so-
Yeah. They went with him the second time instead of going. But honestly, I think he could have done a lot with Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
Some of his storytelling, and he does, like if you watch The Gathering, he does do kind of non-linear plots. Yeah, and even Babylon 5 has some non-linear things going on. So I honestly, I think he could have been an amazing showrunner for Doctor Who.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sad that didn't happen. No, nothing against Russell T. Davis. I think he's also a really good showrunner for Doctor Who, but I would love to have seen him get his crack at Doctor Who.
So let's talk about the last 3 episodes. So
You talk about the third to the last.
So what?
of those.
So what did do you remember the titles for those?
The third to last is Objects in Motion.
All right. So Objects in Motion. So basically, here, let's throw it up here real quick again.
I will say overall, Babylon 5 is a little mixed bag of acting. It has some exceptional actors, but then it also has some that are a little, they're okay. They're fine. Some of them are just like, you gotta say, hey, they're fine. Let's move on.
So the Objects in Motion, basically, Jakar leaves the station with Lita, and then Gabrialdi and Liz. So we'll
So
dive into that.
okay, yeah.
So this is basically the last 3 episodes. Everybody basically
Is leaving the station.
Leaves the station. So this was Jakar's and Lita's exodus.
And Jakar had kind of become like a holy person to his people. He was writing ultimately what was kind of their Bible.
Yeah, he basically becomes the leader of the people. He was a part of the resistance, and he didn't want that. And he talks to Lita, who's this telepath that's got to be so powerful, being touched by a Vorlon. I still love that one line from Sheridan, and was it?
Well, they made her
fourth
sort of a
season?
weapon, and they made her the vessel for Kosh, but then the new Vorlon that took over from Kosh as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was some, anyways. So I love the line there. He basically says, we both got to leave the station for different reasons because everybody wants me and nobody wants you. And and she really thinks he's trying to get her to go with him to use her abilities, and says, all right, well, that's why you really need to go for me, because he is enlightened that he's not trying to do anything manipulative or anything other than help this person out that needs help, because no one else wants to deal with her or can handle her.
She's a weapon at this point. I mean, she's.
What's that line in Our Town? Who can understand? It was only the poets and saints that can understand this. Pick the least important day to go back in time.
I don't know what that has to do with this episode.
What I'm
of
saying is
Babylon 5.
that he being a saint basically is somebody that can handle someone as powerful as Lita. So on the other side note, the other part there is Garibaldi is with was it Lisa, the one that's rich, that's from
Garibaldi, our security chief, who's kind of curmudgeon-y, almost antisocial personality, really.
And that line when Bester, played by Walter Kanan from Mr. Chekhov from Star Trek, I'm so glad he got to be on Babylon 5 to actually show
I loved him on Babylon 5.
how powerful of an actor he really is.
It really got to a point. At first, I would see him come on, and I would be like, "Oh, this is going to be a good episode," because like stuff really happens when he comes on. And then it got to a point where I almost didn't want him because like some stuff happened when he was a scary character.
I got to see him the last time I went to a Star Trek convention, and he's like getting close to 90 years old and whatnot. And he talked a little bit about Babylon 5. Obviously, everyone wants to know about Star Trek at the Star Trek convention. But if I ever get a chance to talk to him, just talking about, I am so, if he did nothing other than Bester, I would like to meet him and get a photo with him.
No, that was a good character. He did a good job. It
And
was,
so when he basically takes Garibaldi and he's on the train and he says, yeah, we manipulated you, we captured you, made you all nervous and made you really suspicious of everything. We hadn't planned it, but you became such a powerful part of it. And he put something in his mind saying that you can't do anything to him. Basically, kind of like didn't he bring up the robots, the Asimov robot saying that you can do no harm to me and whatnot like that. So basically, Garibaldi is working and
well, he marries the rich girl, so
married-
he's kind of part of that company that why they're rich.
yeah, basically going to marry the rich girl from Mars. And one of the things he goes in there, someone's trying to assassinate him, so he takes the guy in there, basically says, I can't. This won't be admissible in court. Says, I don't care about court. So basically, and he's like, oh, you're resisting me. Oh, you're singing tunes. You're doing math. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. Anyways, goes in there and was able to get whatever information he needed. And basically, the deal is that if he does something for the telepaths, she'll take that part of his mind so he can get Bester. And sadly, we never see that come to fruition because that would have been really a cool movie to have that happen. And honestly, we really don't get much of Jakar and Lita after this. They kind of touch on it a little bit in was it the Crusaders? That was another series that just didn't take off. That was kind of a sequel or
Yeah, and
to
the
Babylon
plot
5.
line is fine, like is interesting. I wouldn't have done it that way, but to me, Lita is one who she can't act. I mean, that girl she couldn't act her way out of a paper bag. So
It does show.
Jakar is really good. Like
It does show how the writing is, and maybe you're not that strong of a talent, but the writing alone and that effect may be enough to carry.
I think Jakar is really good, and I think I think Star Trek does an excellent job of making these weird aliens and making them look weird, and I don't think Babylon 5 quite had that attention to detail. I think, and Jakar was so heavily maked up and masked that I think it was really challenging to act through that, and he managed to do that. I would say for the most part.
The actor that played Garrett, who I got to meet at that Star Trek convention also. He basically when he put on the makeup for Garrett, that transformed him into that
Yes, but
character.
Jakar's makeup is way less flexible than Garrett's. Like it's just so much more of a stale mask. Like he really had to work to get through that.
Yeah, what about Kosh? No, anyways, that was just basically was shower curtain one for the most part.
And that was, as long as we're on this, I would say Babylon 5 taught me bald is not a good art direction, especially if you're having like the female of your species. I like actually it takes a minute to get used to, and it's better when they have more of a budget so it looks better. The art direction for the Centauri.
Yeah.
In the first season, it looks like there's a dead cat on his head. But they do get it better. They get more money. It gets more quaff. But the women are basically bald. That's not a good look. They should not have done that. They should have had the women have some kind of hairstyle.
The Ferengi,
Not
that was
good.
similar, and also in Star Trek: The Motion Picture when they had a Deltan, which we never
And the
come back to.
I don't really like. I like the Minbari art direction for the men, but again, I don't like the bald women. Like it's just no.
Yeah, it definitely kind of makes it a little bit more alien thing. So kind of in that series up there, Garibaldi kind of makes a deal with Lita. Okay, I'll help the telepaths do some resistance. The one part that I found really fascinating was that he's looking at a newspaper, and we don't use newspapers anymore. He's like looking at the financial section of it, and we don't use newspapers anymore. 25 years, 26 years after that episodes came out. So it's interesting. Even people that were thinking of the future really didn't predict that print media would go away. Magazines are basically kind of gone for the most part. If you want a certain magazine, you got to subscribe to it because you can't even buy them. There's nowhere to buy magazines anymore. Probably none of you actually have noticed that because you don't look for it. But if you go to a grocery store or a drugstore, they used to go in there and you pick up magazines. There might be some magazines at
There were some at
airports.
Kroger that we were just there today.
No. They're not magazines. They're special time magazines or special life magazines They're not they're not ones that come out monthly. Yeah, I've looked. They might have some crossword ones that are kind of like
You know more than I do.
universal. Anyways, I've looked. You can't buy magazines hardly anymore. So anyways, so that's that episode there. So basically, goodbye to Jakar, goodbye to Lita, Cecil Garibaldi, and then we go on to the next, the penultimate episode.
Yes, the objects at risk, which this one kind of, to me, it kind of ends up the Babylon 5 part of their lives, and then the next episode goes further in their future after Babylon 5. So we start, the captain's talking to Elizabeth Lockley. She's his ex-wife and the new captain, which again, I thought it should have been Ivanova. I didn't like that, so.
And I think in some ways, I don't know for sure, but because there might have been a little bit of question if TNN would actually pick up, maybe that's why she took some other opportunities, but she was really missed in season 5.
Yeah, I think the new captain should have been Ivanova. And honestly, I mean, I get it. It is explained why Sheridan chose his ex-wife, but I thought that was a bit of a sucker punch. And they didn't really do anything with it ever. Like it wasn't anything that really went anywhere.
It was mainly to say that she could stand up to him, right? That was mainly.
It was, but there's other ways to do that. You can still write a strong female character that can stand up to Sheridan. Like, it's not a big deal.
Oh, they could,
to me, it was a little bit of a sucker punch, and they never really did much with it.
they could have had one of his captains be a female captain.
They could have just had Ivanova.
Ivanova would have been the best.
Would have been great.
But
Perfect.
apparently she's a general. Okay, we'll talk about the next thing.
She does have an arc. She comes back. She's not, yeah. So anyway, that's how I felt about them kind of talking. And then we have a scene with Veer and Jakar. Again, I like that. I like them.
No, Jakar's gone.
I'm sorry. Not Veer and Jakar. Veer and Veer's
replacement,
yes.
right? Sawtooth or something like that.
And I like those too. But they get a little.
And the one thing
they're cute.
The one thing is like that at the end of it, Jakar's got to leave really quick because he got to get Lita out, and then Lita does say that they're about to take her handcuffs off, and she just like, why do you have it on? Says, make them feel better. So basically it shows how powerful she actually really is at that part. But the problem was that Jakar had to leave early, so he didn't even get to say goodbye. Delenn didn't get to say goodbye to him because she's coming from Minbar.
Yeah, she went to Minbar to check on she and Sheridan are planning to move to Minbar, and she went to check on like their housing, whatever all the things that were going on there for them to move there.
So,
and you know what, this is, okay, well, never mind. We'll talk about it.
No. So he sets up basically. He makes a recording for, I think it was not Tooth or something like that. I can't, whatever. Who the replacement for Jakar is, and he breaks in there and says, "If you broke in here, you need to do this. I didn't have any more training than you. You can do this. I believe in you. You're a warrior. You're someone who's strong. And they set that up in seasons earlier, a lot earlier, that he would come back and be his replacement. And of course, Veer is the replacement for Londo,
which we knew was going to happen because of Loxana Troy.
Yeah, and then
don't ask.
And then, like you said, we already got another captain there. And then the doctor is like passing on to a doctor that's a specialist, not specialist, a generalist.
To a general. He specifically, he
wanted a generalist instead of a specialist.
So basically, we're all kind of closing out these little plot lines, and I think it's very satisfying. I don't know of many shows that are kind of like you watch this and every character's coming to a resolution that are quite as like satisfying, where you feel like, yeah, that's right. That feels like what should happen.
When they're about to fly away, or is that in the last episode? Where they see all the people on the bridge.
That's the last episode.
Okay, so we won't jump there yet. We're almost
quality, dude. We're quality. Can you tell? We thought this through.
We're almost done with this episode, right? For the most part. Is anything else?
Because is this the one where Lanier comes?
No, does it? I thought that was the last. No, that. Oh, it is.
Lanier comes and he's helping to help Delenn because Delenn's pregnant. Which I don't know if I should go into my little rant about that in this episode.
All right. Lanier, that's the worst ending for him.
But right now, all that's happened is he has come because he knows Delenn's pregnant, and they're moving back to Minbar, so he's come to kind of help with that move. That's all that's going on right now.
He's taking time from the Rangers, right?
Yes. And again, I don't think it's this episode. I don't think it was the last one, but I hated the Delenn pregnancy reveal moment.
Yeah, so basically Lanier, and there's a very awkward talk between Sheridan and him. And
Delenn goes like in the other room to check and make sure everything's packed, and he and Sheridan are like, whoa.
And Sheridan says, "You're welcome to Minbar anytime. We got room for you. Please come by." And Lanier's like, you can tell he's not happy. There's a little uneasiness that's a part there. And of course, he's very polite and you're like, oh yeah, yeah.
Which again, and I will say, just because we're wrapping up the whole Babylon 5, I absolutely love Bill Mamai. He was he's maybe one of the strongest actors on that show. And I loved his character, and I hate what they're doing with his character's arc. But until then, like, amazing actor, amazing rapport with him and Dylan.
I mean, when I saw him as a kid on Lost in Space, him and Dr. Smith, they ran the show. It was truly the Dr. Smith Will show, right? Basically, anyway, so he's a fantastic actor. So
fantastic actor.
And you said he might have been the best actor on there.
He's definitely in contention. I mean, he is a really excellent actor on that show, and sadly got a really disappointing arc compared to what they really could have done with him.
But no, okay, so basically they are going to Mimbar. So they packed up, they said goodbye, they did everything they needed to say, right?
And then a moment, they're all walking out to the ship, and of course a lot of people from the station are there to see Sheridan and Delenn go, and they want a speech, and Sheridan kind of very nicely defers to Delenn and kind of lets her make their little goodbye speech, which I thought was kind of nice and satisfying to have this strong female character and actually give her that moment of being the one to kind of make the farewell speech. So I liked it. Good job.
So that was, and at that point there, he's going to become he's the president of the
non-aligned world. Are they the aligned world now?
Whatever
it is that he's the president now.
Whatever the organization they have there.
And then Lanier has arranged for them to captain the ship home, which was cute.
And the guy, Zach, that takes over the security thing, he does have a line there, I'll probably be here when they turn off the lights, basically. And so they get on the ship.
Somewhere in here, they have a newsreel moment. And maybe that's when they were explaining about Sheridan. Anyway, my point that they're having a newsreel is I kind of like that. It's an established convention of Babylon 5. Sometimes they give you information through what seems like newsreels of the time.
And that's why they had to leave early, right?
Yeah, and they did that. They made a little newsreel to kind of advance the plot, which it was a cool way to tell the story. And again, they have done it in a few other episodes, and I liked that. I thought that was a very clever convention of the show of Babylon 5.
So basically, then we get that where they turn around and they see all the people that replaces them at Babylon 5.
It's a little schmaltzy, but again, a very satisfying. Like, there's very few shows that I'm just like, this feels right. This feels where we should be leaving everybody.
And he gives them a salute, and then they fly to the Mimbar. All right. Now, Sheridan's in the cabin getting antsy.
Just getting antsy.
Now, if you...
The guy who's like taking down the Black Star ship in battle.
With the Zahadum.
Gone to Zahadum. But he's getting antsy on a ship to Mimbar.
I got to move around, and did she suggest a walk?
Yeah, she did. She's like, and he's like, no, I don't want to go for a walk. And he's like, maybe I'll go for a walk.
So and again, it goes back to that. If he would just stay there, Lanier could be a big part of their life. Probably a lot of things would have happened, but no, he goes for a walk.
He goes for a walk.
And even with all that great technology, apparently
there's some leak of some kind.
Some type of leak happens, and I guess maybe that happens even on a Mimbar ship, which I find more unlikely. I mean, it's possible, absolutely, but they're flying the president over. You would think they would have checked everything they needed to check on a ship before they would have an important, person. I mean, this is equivalent of the United States president or the king.
Air Force One.
The king.
Air Force One.
Is there equivalent for the king?
I'm sure there is.
Name for the airplane, the King One, whatever it is, for them to allow the whoever that's royalty or presidents or whatever on there. So anyways, he's walking around and it was a ranger in there, right, saying, "Get out! We've got to seal the hull," or whatever it was, and basically the door closes.
Well, it seals because of the leak. It's like a danger emergency situation. So there's this leak, and then the ship goes, "Oh, we're going to seal off this."
And they can't breathe. And they can't breathe or whatever because of that. Then happily, Lanier walks by, and Sheridan says, "Open the door. Press the button or open the door." And Lanier goes on it, and then runs away, or moves away. Maybe doesn't run, but moves away. And then Sheridan's like, "What's going on?" So picks up the Rangers staff and hits it a couple of times. Happily, I would have just opened it up where, because there's got to be a lot of force from it. We kind of saw that with Marcus and them. And then happily it shatters. Then Lanier has a change of mind and says, no, I can't do this. And runs back. And by that time, everybody's already there. Delenn conveniently walks up, and that's the last time they actually talk.
Well, face to face. They have a phone call.
So I can't remember what he says, but he makes an excuse to go away or whatever.
And she tries to tell him, "Don't go away. We can," because she even says, "Like only Sheridan and I know this. Let's be cool."
This is before that. But
oh, okay.
Because she doesn't know that yet. So he goes away. She's obviously concerned with Sheridan, and then Sheridan looks at Lanier, and that's when he moves away, right? And so he lets her know what's going on, and he's mad, and then she says a true statement. Of all the good that someone does, it comes down to one weak moment. And apparently, this is the part I don't dig. Apparently, they went in his Ranger files and found all these
Ranger diaries. Ranger diaries.
That, well, he's in Ranger school. They went through his stuff. I guess there's no right to privacy on Minbar, I guess. Apparently not. And I knew how he felt about me, but I didn't realize he thought we were abomination or whatever. That this relationship really wasn't supposed to be anything. And then
she means her and Sheridan. Like he thought that she and Sheridan was a bad idea. They shouldn't get married.
Shouldn't have kids, and everything was wrong.
Which again, and it kind to me it kind of goes because when she goes to the Grey Council, he goes with her, and he's like, "I'm your friend," and she's like, "I don't know. I don't want Sheridan to know this stuff about me. I don't want even you to know." And he's like, "No, I'm your friend. I got your back." And they go to the Grey Council. That's when she tells the Grey Council, like, "Sheridan and I are fine, and our kids will be fine, and everybody get off my back." And he supports her through all of that. Lanier supported her through all of that.
Yeah, and I guess the part was that he supported her. He didn't support their relationship.
Okay, but that's what she was going.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, he wasn't going to leave her.
No, but I'm just saying, like, we could have seen this coming from that point. Like, you know what I mean? He could have expressed it then. He could have talked to Delenn then. He could have talked to Sheridan.
Billy Mummy, or how'd you pronounce it?
Mummy? I don't know.
I think it's.
Don't come for me, okay?
I thought it was Mummy.
Maybe it is Bill Mummy. I don't know.
He talked about it because obviously at the conventions, every Babylon 5 fan that loved Lanier says, "How did that happen?" And he basically talks about how he went and said, "Lanier wouldn't do this."
No.
And he came up with another way, and he said, "No, it has to be this way." That he is the one that basically sacrifices everything at the end.
But he didn't.
He
didn't sacrifice it for anything good or noble. Like that, to me, that would have been great for Lanier if he was really like something happens to Sheridan and Lanier has to give him a kidney and Lanier dies because he's saving Sheridan. Like that's Lanier.
But he wanted somebody that made a bad mistake and then had to pay for that for the rest of his career. It wasn't Lanier, and he's part of the religious cast, right?
Or he needed a bigger mistake, like a mistake that really betrayed the Anla Shah, like. Something like that. Like
yeah, if he would have killed a member.
Not just like, oh, I got in some interpersonal drama and no.
Now, okay, it wasn't a Minbar in there, right? It was a human ranger that was in there with Sheridan, right? I wonder if there would have been a Minbari in there if he would have just opened the door.
I don't know.
I don't know. Because remember the big question, why did the Minbar on the hills of basically being able to destroy Earth stop at the last moment? And because they figured out that Minbar and humans were connected together, and Minbari don't hurt their own kind. So interesting. And you know what? That does show that he didn't think humans were Minbari. So I guess if you dive into that, and maybe
which again earlier he had professed to, like that something that had been talked about. He had been talked about. He knew all of the things that they had discovered, all of, And
he had to go through Delenn's transformation from,
he went
bald
through it
to
with
hair.
her. Yeah.
And he would be the one that, she's indisposed for right now.
Yeah, he supported her through that. So to me, it just doesn't make sense that was Lanier and what Lanier
but
did.
Like you said, she convinces Sheridan not to say anything. There's someone between us.
Yeah, it's all between us. Be cool, Lanier. Come back. We're all good. And
talk about the phone call.
Lanier's a pansy.
Talk about the phone call that they talked about.
So, yeah, Lanier finds a way to call Delenn in a very, untraceable, and she's like, no, come back. We won't say anything. It's all good. We can work this out. And he's like, no, I brought shame. Whatever.
Well, basically, he was also saying that I'll see you one more time. That never happens. So once again, here's another that I guess he was thinking if they ever do a movie or sequel or whatever, and that would have been really cool to see what happened with Lita, with Jakar, to see what happened with Lanier, and there's other things that we could have saw that would come to fruition. So that leaves a really bad taste. But they're saying, well, we can't go after them because if we're late at all, they'll think the whole world fell apart. So we can't be late, right? That's basically what they're saying. So they can't be late. And so they get to Minbar, right?
Yes, and I did think it was a little funny. So they get to Minbar, and they're walking off the ship, walking into, I guess, the palace, the White House, the place they're gonna live, the president and his wife, and all this. I thought there should have been a little more fanfare, like more Minbari there. Again, maybe they're trying to suggest they didn't really have as much support as we imagined, but I thought there would have been like, oh, people and parades and fireworks, and they just kind of walk. I mean, there are a few people and some security around them, but it's not the fanfare I expected.
Yes. All right. So that's the end of that episode, isn't it?
Yes.
Then,
and again, I think, and this is something I think Star Trek misses. They really give Delenn and Sheridan and really make time to show them as a couple and to have little incidental marriage moments. Their relationship is really important to the show. Not only do they give it moments to kind of develop and breathe, it's very important to the story. And I think a lot of science fiction misses that. They don't capitalize on relationships and marriages and things. And that's one thing I find really satisfying in Babylon 5. I mean, we see them meet, we see them flirt, we see them really getting together and getting married. And they even, like I said, they make time for scenes when they're just in their quarters talking about something.
I still think of that presentation we did at a Comicpalooza, and this young lady walks in.
We did a presentation at Comicpalooza about relationships in science fiction, but yes. Romantic relationships in the world of science fiction.
This young lady walks in, and we're like at 5 o'clock, almost like
we were the last
4:30,
thing at the last day. Our panel was shut down right after.
Something else was going on that she wanted to go to, and she asked, I wish I knew what relationship it was. It was some... Yeah,
which we were going to talk about this specific relationship.
I'm assuming it was some manga.
Some micro fandom. Fandom.
It's good, because then I can go, I'm just thinking, I like her attitude, that thinking that, we're going to talk about that specific relationship in science fiction because it's so pivotal in the world of science fiction, and I have no idea what it was. I wish I would know. I wish I could have, what was it? Let me go look it up. Anyways.
Delenn and Sheridan, I don't know. There's a few other, I like Troy and Riker. I like some, but I don't know. To me, Delenn and Sheridan might be top of my list of just well done, well developed, good, strong relation. They don't do a lot of, they don't sucker punches with their relationship. They don't give them things to worry about in huge fights. They're just a good couple that are happy, that are married, that get to be happily married. Love it.
Yeah, I just wish that Lanier would have had a better.
No, I do too. I absolutely wish. There's so much more, so many more choices they could have gone for with Lanier.
That's it for Lanier. You never see him. I don't think you see him in the movies there. I think he's completely gone.
Babylon 5, has a lot of, they have movies and they have some books and comics. They have a lot of other stuff, some of which is considered canon. I don't know. Don't come for me if this is wrong. I think at least in some places, Lanier is part of some rebellion or thing that gets shot. His name comes back on a roll as missing from some battle, but he was there more independently. I don't think he was back as part of the Al-Nashah.
Yeah, he apparently was trying to redeem himself in this battle, I guess, and don't even know what it was. So.
No, and that's not part of the show. It's not part of your mainstream episodes or anything.
Goodbye, Lanier. Now we get to the last episode where we have a time jump.
Yes, and now we're a
20-year or 19-year,
19 years in the future. Oh, wait! Didn't that end? Talk about a very beautiful, satisfying end. Sorry.
Yes.
With Sheridan making a tape for his son and saying I probably won't be here when you get to certain ages, and just kind of giving him advice, and then Delenn kind of comes in, and it was just such a chef's kiss, lovely little moment of. So, and then we're in the future, in the next episode, we're the 19 years in the future.
The last episode called
Sleeping in Light.
Last episode, jump. And basically, I guess he's having dreams and knowing that he's.
Well, yeah, because he knew that he was told how much time he would have, and he's starting to have dreams that his time is up. Because he was told back seasons ago that
if you go to Zahudum,
And he only had 20 years after Zahadum.
I can
And
just breathe on the embers a little bit.
he knows that time is coming, and these dreams are kind of starting to tell him like it's going to be really soon.
So basically, he sends out rangers.
Well, he and Dylan had this plan, and so they're going to have this big dinner party with all of their former friends, and they send out the invitations.
So happily, we get to see Ivanova, who's a general,
Yeah, she gets invited
who clears her schedule, and then
and is kind of dissatisfied with her generalness.
For some reason, Garibaldi and the doctor are hanging out playing tennis, I guess.
And we
with
see
his
that
daughter.
Garibaldi has a daughter. Yeah,
We don't see his wife in that episode.
No.
Which I wonder if one, they couldn't get the actor to come back, or two, they didn't want to make her old because that would have cost more money. So I don't know. It was one or the other probably. So, and honestly, she don't need to be there for like 3 seconds anyway. So it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. So they both get that, and then and go. Veer is now the.
Did we see Lando get one? Because Lando comes.
No,
Lando
is
was
in
at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
So we really stink at this.
All right. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The end of the last episode, before we get to this dinner party 20 years in the future, what is that thing called that's on Lando's shoulder?
Well, it's one of the shadows, right?
So anyway, he's got this shadow thing that's controlling him as the emperor of Minbar.
No,
Have you noticed how
Centauri.
Babylon 5 loves Minbari, Centauri, Brivari? It has a lot of rhyming words. So anyway, he gives Delenn and Sheridan this urn for their son. And they're kind of like a little bit, do we want to take this? But anyway, they take it, they put it up. And in the end, we see that the urn has some little eye sleeping in it or something. And that's never really done anything with.
That was another thing that.
And again, I don't know if you know this, if you did the research. Again, all of this other extra books and things, what happened was, because Lando tells them, give this to your son when he turns 16. On Centauri, it's 16, we give these to the kid that it's for. So they give it to their son, David, and at night of his 16th birthday, that little thing attaches to David. Oh, did you know this? Do you know this?
No.
Oh. And it makes David go to Centauri Prime. And of course, Delenn and Sheridan find this out, and they're like, don't go to Centauri Prime. They're like, we're going to Centauri Prime after our kid. And that is what we see when we see old Delenn, and she's like, David is fine, and it's the young Sheridan, because there's a time mess up, and then they go to Lando, and he helps them get away, but he was told to kill them, but he helps them get away, even though that shadow.
So that was a setup for that.
That was the setup for that, and they get David and they bring him home.
They're able to get that thing off of him.
Yes, they are, it explains how. I don't know the not the fan fiction, but the novel that it's from. But anyway, they get the thing off of David, and David's fine.
So we never see the son.
No.
At all.
Not in the shows.
We don't see a baby. We don't see.
And we don't even see him again when we have the old Delenn in that moment on Centauri Prime.
So,
we have seen that moment.
Yeah, but we don't see him in that either, right?
No, we don't see him in that. But I'm saying we'd seen the moment with Delenn finding Sheridan because David had been taken.
So that was all that set up for that. Okay, awesome. So that was Lando's swan song also. To get
which
out
was
of it.
In the second to last episode. He gives him that and he goes. Now the last episode, Sheridan feels like he's going to die. They send out all the invitations. They send one to Veer because Veer is now the emperor.
Yes, and so Emperor, and he's like sad, so he goes also. And then is there anybody else that gets it? I think that's it, isn't it?
There's, gosh.
Then we're going to try to send one to Zach, but his address was wrong.
Yeah.
So he's on He's back on Babylon 5. So basically they all come over.
They have a fabulous dinner party.
Have a great dinner, talk about laughing and talking about stuff going on, everything like that. And then Sheridan knows his time has come to the end, and he's going to go on his last Sunday drive.
It's such beautiful scenes with him and Delenn. I don't know. Some people might think they're a little too schmaltzy and a little overdone, but I really love that. Like, they're talking about the Sunday drive, but they both know he means he's not coming back.
So he gets up before.
At first, you see they wake up in bed, and that's when they're kind of talking.
No, was it the night before the dinner party? When did he get up and say, "I want to watch the sunset, the sunrise"? Was it then, or anyway? It's in that episode where he says I just never seen the sunrise.
Or did he just get up and she walks in and
Yeah,
she's like,
yeah,
what's
yeah,
going on?
yeah.
She's kind of cute and flirty, actually. The whole lines, it's really adorable. And he says, oh, I wanted to see the sunrise. So she sits with him and they watch the sunrise.
Yeah. And so after that, every day
Now, Ivanova tells us.
she gets up and watches the sunrise every day. And remember that episode where they go into the future and they had the newscast and a 5,000 euro Delin shows up and talks about he was a good man or whatever it was, and then and so forth. And that's another really great episode there, showing how apparently Earth had lost electricity, and every year
If I quite call it great.
the Rangers add a little bit more. Like we're gonna add gasoline this year.
Yeah, and it's showing basically the stories that we're seeing of Babylon 5 kind of have become more and more legend, more and more myth, almost to the point of religion. These stories that we watched have, because humanity is kind of like the technology has gone down, and anyway, so there's kind of like back in the Middle Ages, and our stories have become almost a religion. Anyway, but that's a different episode.
Yeah. So, but anyway, some calls back to that. So he says, "I'm going to go on a sunny drive." Takes one of the ships, and
There's always weed.
And he wants to see Babylon 5 one last time, and coincidentally shows up for the when it's just about to be decommissioned. There's like 3 people on the station, or almost nobody. Zach is one of them, and he says, "Well, I guess that explains why you didn't get the the letter." So what was that? No, don't worry about it. And so he says, "Hey, stay for dinner." Blah blah. Blah. I got to go, but anyways, and so he goes out and he goes to. It's not Zahadun. Well,
no, he goes to the rim.
He goes to the rim. Okay, he goes to the rim, and then basically,
that big alien dude talks to him and is like, "Oh, you're here."
Disappears, and then
and Ivanova says they do find the ship and reclaim the ship, but Sheridan's body is never found. So Sheridan's like no one ever. They're like, the people in the universe don't know what happened to him because his body,
the ship is completely hauled. I mean,
but they don't find him,
sealed up, and then.
Oh, and when he's on, I don't know if you caught this, and I don't know if it's real. When they're decommissioning Babylon 5, it's filmed in front of that station where Delin and Sheridan would get those newspapers. So there's a really cute, flirty scene early on of him like getting a newspaper to look at the sports, and her getting a newspaper to check on news from Minbar, how things were. And it was just a little flirty moment between them back in the early days.
And they basically were saying because...
And it's on that set where for that moment had happened. It was where the last decommissioning scene was filmed.
And so like when they all go to, once Sheridan's gone, they all go to the Babylon 5 for the very last part of it, for them actually to flip the switch. And they're looking around and everything. And like you said, he makes a special appearance of turning the lights off himself, which is symbolic and really kind of cool. And then they're basically made the think, well, this is redundant because, or they probably said to Sheridan that, with how everything's all connected, the Babylons are no longer needed because they're able to resolve everything off the Babylon stations now. So no one was there. All the commerce had left. Everybody had left. And so it was more expensive to maintain it. It was just easier to blow it up, and which they promptly do. Mm-hmm. And so you get to see literally the Babylon 5 explode instead of just be out there as a derelict, which in some ways I'm the kind of thing, you know what, you might need it again. It's a big city that you could house people at and stuff. Nope, exploded. And that's basically...
Except back to, okay, so this was something I found out doing that research on the David plotline that brought Sheridan and Delin back into a moment that we did see in the show. Those are, what are those called? Those books from the series, and I don't know, I guess they're considered canon, like people who write professionally published books.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously they have the copyright and the permissions to do it. Star Trek had a lot of them. Star Trek Next Generation had a ton of them. Babylon 5 has some. And the little plot line, that one of David and Sheridan and Delin and all, was written by author Peter David, who, when I was, 12 and 13 and way hard into Star Trek Next Generation, I loved those Peter David novels. He wrote Q and Law. He wrote the Imzadi books about Troy and Riker. So now I am super excited to go back and read that whole thing because I'm really excited that my man Peter David did it right, because some of them are really disappointing and stupid, but when it said Peter, at least when I was 12, if it said Peter David, I was like, yeah, that's a good one. And I always enjoyed them.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna revisit some Peter David and see.
That's kind of a lost thing because like like X-Files had some books, right?
It did, and I never quite enjoyed the X-Files one. I might try those again, but I'm excited for my man. Peter
So
David.
I'm trying to think. I mean, Doctor Who. I assume.
I'm actually a little jealous. How is that not my profession to like write professional fan fiction? I mean, how amazing would that be?
So
Fan fiction writer.
so like Doctor Who probably has that.
Doctor Who, yeah, has some.
Is there
yeah,
is there
But
any
it
other?
does.
Is there anything else that I can't think of anything else that has that
Oh,
now.
come on, surely Buffy probably has some.
No, I'm talking about current things.
What do you mean current things?
Well, okay, Game of Thrones is based off of books, so that's not going to be any more books. But I'm talking about something that's out right now. Like I don't know.
I don't think the Babylon 5 ones are out right now. They're
No. They came out they came out during the time of the episodes. I'm just saying, what shows are out there today that they write
oh,
books
it's a thing
on?
they don't do.
They don't do that
Yeah, they
anymore.
don't make books from a show.
And partially because people don't read anymore. That's
Well, do you think it's that, or do you think it's fan fiction? People are just like, hey, I'll just go read some fan fiction.
maybe I don't know. So maybe.
And again, I noticed the X-Files ones were not. Again, I'll revisit them as a proper adult and see. But I remember being kind of disappointed.
I
in
do know
X-Files.
this, A Stitch in Time by Garrett.
We're back in DS9.
My friend lent me the book. See, I was a big fan. And he bought the book because he was a big fan.
But it
of
was like a
Garrett
comic,
also.
right?
No,
Oh, no, it
it's
was-
a book.
okay,
It's a book.
okay.
They didn't make many copies of it because it was DS9. Those books go for $200-300.
Well, because they're out of print.
They're out of print, and that's probably out of all the Star Trek books, that's probably the most expensive book to get a
Why did
hold
we get a
of.
thumbs down?
Some of our hands are going, so we do that. I think it gives us a thumbs up. I think. Anyways, so he actually, when I saw him, they have the copy I went and bought was the Kindle version because they don't have the printed version, and then he made the audio version of that, which is fantastic. So if you're a big Garrett fan, that book is fantastic, and he wrote it himself. It also shows this how much thought a good actor puts into their character. And I don't know if you got this or hear this from people. Oh, I can act, I can cry on command, I can do that. The people that are so good as actors, they are able to connect and have a thought process of what their roles are. And that book written by him shows how much time and thought he put into that character. And I would say for a lot of the folks in the best actors, I bet Quark could write a book on himself. I bet Odo could have wrote a book on himself. Patrick Stewart could have wrote a book on himself, but it would have been nothing like it should have been anyways.
He did, and they called it Picard, and they made it into a TV show, and it was
make
really
us
bad.
Star Trek show without Star Trek uniforms or ships and
Or bridge crews.
None of the bridge crew. Let's all get together for dinner, like Baldy, as Troy said.
Old Baldy.
Old Baldy.
That's what Marina calls Patrick Stewart, and she will admit that, and she will tell it to his face. So it's not a.
Old Baldy invited us all to dinner to say that we're not going to have any of you on except for you, Data and Riker, and you can direct as well. And Troy, you can have a little bit of something because you're married, of course. And then, Worf, Gates, McFadden, Geordi.
I think, yeah.
It was such a. They finally made it
Missed
correct.
opportunity, a really horribly missed opportunity.
From multiple seasons. The last season they finally got it right. It was a lot better, and we finally got a decent couple parts of a movie
But did
there.
we?
We really did. It was a satisfying ending.
But
and
was it?
It was.
Hey, Babylon 5 to me takes the cake for satisfying endings.
Yeah. So that's it.
And I mean, you're sad to see a show you love stop, but like to me, yeah, I'm sad as a show I loved the end, but like I felt okay with it. I felt like yes, that's right. Everything was in the right place.
The Gathering I liked. But
it was okay. It was fine.
and like you said though, it was basically we already just saw 5 years of this.
No, and again, because I was bootlegging and just watching it, what is that called? Why can't I think?
Oh, well, I call it shotgunning it. Just watching it over and over again.
Yeah, so I didn't have to wait and not
binge
watching. I was binging it, so I just watched The Gathering, and it was like, dude, that's just what I've spent 5 seasons of. Like, why?
Well, at the time you were watching it, it was on HBO,
Yeah,
and then now it's on Tubi now
with
with
commercials.
commercials. So basically, it's still out there. And we talked about this a little bit briefly a while ago that people used to buy DVDs or VHS series, and you're like thinking the amount of real estate you got to have for 26 episode for 5 seasons.
Because a VHS probably had
Two,
two, yeah.
two, because they did it on the high mode, so it was two 45-minute episodes. So you had 12 tapes at least, maybe 13, depending on if they did 26 that season. So DVDs made it a little bit better because you could fit a good 6 episodes, maybe 8 episodes on a DVD. And of course, they took up a lot less real estate. But now nobody wants that. You're watching. You can watch whatever you want to watch. If you got Paramount, you can watch Star Trek. All the Star Treks on there. But you didn't mention this, like on there when you had all the DVDs for X-Files, they had commentaries, which that's the part that I liked, and that's why if I do go out and buy something, if there's a good director's commentary, I'm really interested in how they put it together. Those were good. Now, Battlestar Galactica, I think on the second season they had a podcast, and I listened to that every episode that came out. I listened to the Better Call Saul podcast, and because they would talk about how things were put together, and I like how you got to think about this production. Like you go out here, you got to pay more because this is further away from the base camp, and this, and so this how many hours this would take. So I like the behind the scenes stuff. So anyway, so it was quite great. Well, I think that's a good
So,
episode.
what is our next
Um,
show that you're going to subject me to?
okay.
I bring you great quality, like Babylon 5.
Let,
You
let
brought me
me
Cop Rock.
Cop Rock. Okay. So let's go.
What is our
Actually, before that,
next?
well, there's a couple of options that we could do on this. We could do this. This might be an easier one. Is for we could re-envision. Want to say what was the one? There was one I was going to do. I had actually forgotten, but this was my plan B was. So let me pull that up real quick. Why don't, because you are such an expert on the X-Files,
Oh,
you pick, and you don't have to tell me right this second.
you're in my wheelhouse now.
You pick the best episode, or you can pick the episode you think I would like the most. So that's kind of your choice. And you have to even think about you can think about it. You don't have to think about this second. You don't have to tell me right this second, because obviously this is me throwing this on you. But they have apparently the 20. Someone has here the 25 best episodes of X-Files, the 30 best episodes of X-Files, ranked from worst to best. So anyway, so you can think about that, and I don't either one you want. In some ways, I almost like, what is the best episode? I watched this. If you had to give an episode that no one that has never watched the X-Files, so get them hooked on X-Files, what episode would that be?
Do I get to pick two or just get to pick one?
Do I need to?
Okay, there are two. I could recommend one like right now, but I'm just saying there are two that I have a hard time choosing between.
If they're connected together, I'll watch two.
They're not connected together.
Well, then pick the best
I
one.
think I've made you watch them both already.
Well, I probably forgot it.
But they're not the ones I would recommend to get you hooked to X-Files.
So you can think about that. Just let me know which one I need to watch, and then we can talk about the X-Files. I thought X-Files was relaunching with a reboot, and I thought it was already out, but apparently they had been talking about it's supposed to be out in 2024. But like a lot of things,
I'm sorry.
when
I don't. I like the original part of the original show.
I mean, could a reboot work? It could,
I don't know, dude.
but sometimes you only get magic once.
And I think a lot of their problem is I think the magic was Mulder and Scully, and by that I mean David and Jillian.
Well, it's definitely the magic with Red Dwarf. You needed those actors to pull that thing off. It wasn't, the writing was there, the chemistry was there, but in some ways I think Red Dwarf works because they all were there together when it should not have worked. And anyway, so well, I think that's a good place to end today. Um, so thank you so much for listening to the Random Fandom Zone. And I'm Herbert,
I'm Heather.
and tune in next week.
Or 2 weeks or whatever.